Yo, what's up, boys and girls? Another day, another week, another episode of the Mir Recap. Let's get straight into the teams. All right, let's start with the number one team as usual. We're going to start, you know what? Let's start with the number one team as usual. So Bigatron Alpha start things off with BTR. So the thing about Bigatron Alpha, the reason we put them as number one last week was because of their super multi-dimensional playstyle and how all of them basically have learned how to be disciplined in the mid game, utilizing the early game snowball like usual, but also learning from their mistakes of throwing in the mid game and how to actually close out games better. Also, the understanding of their own power windows. So for Bigatron, I honestly feel like I will still put them at number one. I won't really change anything for Bigatron Alpha because, again, they're looking really, really solid. And what week 7 has told us is basically the same thing, right? Like Bigatron Alpha 2-0-2-0, both their matches. Went for 2-0 week as well in matches, and they clean swept everybody. So Bigatron Alpha really showed that their draft is really, really good. The players understand how to execute the drafts that have been given by Kezcute, and the players have such a massive hero pool that it actually enables the rest of Bigatron Alpha to really just pop off. And I think, again, for Bigatron Alpha, what makes them really, really special is the fact that everyone can really carry in this game, in Bigatron Alpha. Obviously, the number one carry is still Eman, right? Like, they will obviously still want to rely on Eman every single time that they can. But if they can't, Super Ken can step up, Moreno can step up, and even Chorizo can step up at this point. And with the swaps of Chorizo with Lord JM as well, I feel like they have such a very good lineup to swap things out as well. But I think we will see less of Lord JM now. I'm actually not sure. We might see more of Lord JM, or we might see less of Lord JM, because I honestly don't know who the main lineup is for Bigatron Alpha. And that shows how good both, the players are that, have both of the substitutes technically for Chorizo and Lord JM. I will have to say, though, for Lord JM, I think he definitely performs better on carry types of XP laners, like the Benedetta, the Paquito as well. When you, independent thoughts is what I like to call it. So a lot of XP laners have their own thought process, and Lord JM falls under that category of XP laner. The XP laner that doesn't really want to initiate, but wants to be the carry, because he has his own way of thinking in the game, and he follows his own way of thinking. He makes his own decisions. Meanwhile, for people like Chorizo, he's more of a team player where he actually listens to the team, he actually plays for the team, he becomes a playmaker for the team, whether it be an initiator like a Terizla, or even playing like the X-Borgs, and that's why he's more of that team-centric player for the XP. But both of them are really, really good. I'm going to have to put Bigatron Alpha, or keep Bigatron Alpha at number one for now. Let's move on to ONIC, though, because ONIC had a pretty amazing week as well. I think everybody on this team stepped up. Lutpi especially. We've been saying this for since the last week, or since 2 weeks ago when Lutpi started playing for ONIC, but a lot of people thought Lutpi was another weak link in ONIC, blah, blah, blah. I feel like, no. It's really because he was basically forced into the fill role, as we are used to seeing from Boots and CW, but now just more so for Lutpi. So when you want to play assassins in the jungle like ONIC, you have to kind of sacrifice a few things, a lot of the resources, and one of those lanes that you can sacrifice is the XP lane, especially when you pick up Terizla, when you pick up these heroes that are already super, super tanky, don't need a lot of resources to get going, and it becomes technically the initiator for the team. I think I said this last week as well, but I'm going to say it again here in case you guys forgot, or in case we got some new viewers here who don't know what I said about ONIC and Lutpi. Lutpi is actually the main tank for ONIC. Keyboy isn't a tank. Keyboy is the roamer, but he's not the tank. Because the main initiator, for the most part, in most of their matches, is Lutpi. Especially when he's given heroes like the Terizla. But when he doesn't, when he gets heroes like the Paquito, when he gets heroes like the Arlet, he actually does perform. And he actually does become that playmaker XP lane like we were talking about for Chorizo. And sometimes he can even carry on the Paquito. Very, very complete player, and I think under the guidance of Yeb, under the guidance of 4 freaking gods in MPL ID in the ONIC lineup, he is maturing really, really fast and learning really, really fast. Super impressive improvements from Lutpi, but for the rest of the team, I don't think we need to talk much about them. And CW had a standout in this week for sure performance. Kyrie had more of a standout performance last week. Now he's going back to just doing Kyrie things. We kind of expect these things. He's so good that the expectation, the bar is set so high. But I think for CW, this player has been underrated for so long. I can't believe we're still saying that CW is underrated. He has been performing since Season 8. Though, for the most part, in international tournaments, after Season 8, Season 9 as well, he doesn't really perform internationally. But I think after MSC last year and after M5, CW has become one of the best gold laners, and I think right now he is definitely still up there as the best gold laner, one of the best gold laners in Indonesia. It's getting kind of close in Indonesia right now with CW performing so well, with Iman performing so well, with Skylar barely still making into the argument or the conversation because, his team isn't doing too well. But needless to say, CW deserves the spotlight, and I think if he continues to play this way, he might actually have my choice or my pick. He might be my pick for player or team of the season gold lane, first team gold lane. Not sure though. I think Eman is still there for now. He's also leading in the MVP chart, so we'll have to see about that. But let's move on. ONIC, I'm still putting them here because for Bigatron and ONIC, I honestly feel like both of them are actually like equally matched for now, based on their performances recently. Obviously, if you want to base it off of just the matchups or their head-to-head, ONIC actually won against Bigatron in leg number 1. But Bigatron has been more consistent. They have basically kind of proven that they are currently number 1. Things will change in week 9 if ONIC get it done against Bigatron Alpha. But I think the Bigatron Alpha that lost against ONIC in leg 1 and the Bigatron Alpha we have today is a very different team. They've learned so much from their mistakes from that match in particular, and they have improved by a long shot. So for now, I will keep the standings like this. Bigatron Alpha and ONIC will stay at the same spot. But now let's move on to the greats. Aura. Man, Aura. I honestly don't know what to say about Aura here because it's kind of the same that we've been saying for a few weeks of mere recap now. The main problem for Aura is the fact that Kabuki can only play carry and Claude, and when he's on any other pick, he can still perform. I'm not saying Kabuki is a bad goal laner on the Harith, on the Roger. Harith doesn't count, honestly, because everyone plays Harith. Everybody can play Harith. Harith is broken. But Roger, he plays well on the Roger, but he doesn't play the Roger like he does the Claude and the carry. So it leaves this team super, super vulnerable to getting outdrafted. Also, for Yaoi, I think a lot of teams have finally gotten the read on Yaoi. Aran also underperforming. Aran's always been like this, even from week 1. It's either he performs really, really good or he performs pretty mediocre, right? And I think he's back to what I said in week number 1. After week number 1, the mirror recap in week number 1. I remember after week 1, I said that Aran is the most basic and is like the most mediocre XP lane in Indonesia. And in week 2, week 3 onwards, he really stepped up. He performed again, and he was number 1 for my XP lane tier list, even for 2 weeks in a row. But this week, he has gone back to that level of mediocrity, and it's very, very sad to see. Hopefully, Aran finds his form again. Yaoi is getting read out as well, because right now, really, the only thing you need to be concerned of from Aura is, obviously you want to ban Kabuki's pick, and then you want to win the trio mid. If you do that, then Aura really don't have much to play with. If Yaoi doesn't perform, Gugun can still win retries. We did see that, this week or last week actually. Even up against ONIC, they were actually winning a few of these retries because of Gugun. But still, Gugun's retries alone is not enough. The rest of the team needs to step up as well. I think Gugun and Yaoi are the two shining lights, and Yehezkiel as well. But Aran and Kabuki, the two side lanes, are definitely bringing them down. I will have to demote them to just great. I won't put them to mid-table because I still feel like this team is really, really good, and these mistakes are very easily fixed. At least I feel like it's very easily fixed. If they don't fix it, though, they could easily, barely just scrape playoffs here in mid-table. But let's move on to Evo's glory. Evo's had an amazing week. Anavel has proven himself to be a very, very diverse jungler. A lot of people kind of thought, even me included, that he could only play the utility junglers, the Fredrins, the Baksha, the Barats, and his main pick, which is the Alpha. And he does still perform on the Alpha. He does still perform in the utility junglers. But it just feels like he's a different beast entirely when he's on the Assassins. What I would say to describe Anavel is he is a mix of Taz and Sutsujin. He's like, but he hasn't he hasn't reached the level of Taz and Sutsujin just yet. I think a little bit more playtime and he will be able to reach that. A little bit more game time and improvement, he'll be able to reach that for sure. But what do I mean by a mixture of Sutsujin and Taz? He plays like Sutsujin on the utility junglers. He's super, super aggressive and he gets neutral objectives really, really cool while also invading to get the level advantage. What do I mean by him being a mixture of Sutsujin and Taz? Next part is the Taz part. Is on Assassins, he's just completely selfish. That's Taz's playstyle. He doesn't give a fuck about the team. And that's what you need to have as an assassin jungler. As harsh as it sounds, that's the reality of it. If you're a selfless assassin jungler, you should never play assassin jungler because you're not really going to make it work. Especially on the Ling, on the Fanny, you need to be selfish. You need to find farm. You need to find ways to get yourself ahead over the team because you are the carry. You are the main character when you are on these assassins. And NFL technically plays both these roles like Sutsujin on the utility and Taz on the assassin. So I think he's a very good mix. If Evos can continue to improve on that on Anavel, he's going to be an absolute monster. And I just honestly want to say, what the fuck is wrong with Evo's glory? How do they always find junglers on this caliber? They had Juan, obviously, in Season 4. And when Juan left, they got Fairsick. Fairsick, when he joined Evos, was an absolute beast. Then, you know, kind of had a slump. Then they found Taz. And then they found Sutsujin. And then now they have found Anavel. Evos always find a way to find good talent. And I think for the rest of the team, it's also very, very cool. Like Clockhood, though he does make a few mistakes, he does play like a very early Sans, in my opinion. He invades, he plays very aggressively, but sometimes he overextends and he gets punished and the team gets punished with him. But he understands how to utilize, you know, his mechanics really, really well. His instincts are also razor sharp. So I think for Clockhood as well, very, very high potential mid laner that can, you know, improve even more and become an absolute monster. Evo's Glory have really surprised me, man. This roster of Evos, the roster that we are seeing now with Brands, Fluffy, Clockhood, Dreams, and Anavel, they're the only team in MPL ID to start with a negative point, aggregate point thing in the playoffs. In the regular season, sorry. They're the only team that starts with a negative. Every other team started with 0 points. They started with a negative because of the previous Evo's Glory roster. And they have somehow made it work. So for the rest of them, the reason I'm not really mentioning Fluffy, Dreams, and Brands is because they play like they usually do. Fluffy, there are some weaknesses that can be exploited from Fluffy, mainly his hero pool now. It used to be really, really wide, but maybe because he got so comfortable on the X-Borg, he plays every hero kind of like the X-Borg, which can get him in trouble. But his Yuzong is still really, really good. He just needs to learn or relearn the Paquito again, and things will be all right. Dreams as well is just solid. Brands and Dreams, I feel like these two players are just really, really solid. They're not crazy, flashy levels of good, but they fill the team's roles really, really well. They need veterans who can fill these roles when, you know, the others fail to carry or when the early game is already snowballing. So, yeah, Evos, they're looking really, really strong, and I'll have to put them right here. But next, we're moving on to mid-table, and we're going to start with RRQ Hoshi. And, man, what a week for RRQ. And it was a very, very sad week as well. Most of you guys will probably say RQ are washed, RQ are garbage, yada, yada, yada. And, yeah, I kind of have to agree in like to a certain extent that their one-dimensional playstyle. Okay, let's just be honest here, right? No holds barred here. RQ is Skylar Esports, and there's no way to go around it. It's like ONIC in Season 10 and ONIC in M4. It was Kyrie Esports. And then ONIC have transitioned to everybody being able to carry. Now RRQ, they're in a spot where they have one really, really good player, like a godly player, and then everybody else, they're not bad, but they're not on his level. So technically for RRQ, the only way you win games is play for Skylar, protect Mr. President, and Mr. President is always Skylar. You will win with that playstyle because Skylar is just that good, and the rest of the team can enable Skylar against every other team from mid-table to no playoffs that I've like written here. But even GeekFam can hold them off. Even Aura, you know what? I think they can win with that strategy against every team except the top teams. And unfortunately for RRQ, they were up against the two top teams last week. ONIC 2-0, BTR 2-0. Does that mean RRQ are bad? Not really. I don't think so. They lost to Bigatron and ONIC. They lost to the top 2 teams who are on fire, who found their form, who look unbeatable. Bigatron and ONIC stand at a level that, like, alone at the top, and only Evos technically, for now, has a chance to take them down, because we did see that in leg number 2. But for RRQ, I will have to downgrade them because they are very, very one-dimensional. I feel this is a very, very easily counterable team composition now. Teams that aren't top teams will look at the way that Bigatron Alpha and ONIC beat RRQ and will basically use that as a blueprint now to beat RRQ. So RRQ are in a spot where their main strategy has been debunked. The fact that they were up against Bigatron and ONIC was really a bad, like, it's really bad for Bigatron and for RRQ that they met Bigatron and ONIC last week, is what I'm trying to say here, because now the blueprint's out there, and a lot of other teams will basically try to replicate the same thing that ONIC and Bigatron did against RRQ. So I'll have to move them to mid-table. And for Rebellion, we're going to actually put them up over RRQ, because Rebellion, it just seems like they are, I don't know. This team is so freaking weird. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Rebellion is the weirdest team in MPL ID, because they will struggle up against, like, teams in the bottom, bro. They will struggle. But when they go up against teams at the top, they are just gods, bro. I have no idea. Rebellion rise to the level of the occasion at every single moment. Like, they will lose against every team rated lower than them, but they will win against every team rated higher than them. Rebellion are just that kind of team, and honestly, they're just super inconsistent. I can't even put to words what makes Rebellion so special. They have core fundamentals. They have a great XP laner that's super, super underrated. Fuck, their entire roster is underrated. Nobody gives any of them credit, bro. Maybe Auditizi recently, because, you know, he has been trash talking, but Vincent is so good. He's so solid. Swalo is a solid. They're all solid, dude. Cars, Swalo, Vincent, Auditizi, and even D Moai. I still personally prefer D, but Moai has been playing for Rebellion, and it has been pretty good. So they're just a solid team that finds ways to utilize their strengths when they're up against stronger teams, but completely forget fundamentals when they're up against lesser teams. If Rebellion can keep this win streak going, or this form going, it seems like every week we say this about Rebellion, but if they can keep this form going, they could very easily be a great team. I'm not even joking. This team has so much potential, and for Rebellion, I really hope the coaches finally find a way to make the players consistent, or vice versa, the players finally find a way to make the draft consistent as well from the coaches, so that Rebellion can actually reach that level of greatness. Because for now, the dark horse in MPL ID has to be Rebellion. It has to be. Let's move on to the no playoffs category. And for Geek Fam, I'm going to have to move them up to mid-table, because, and over RRQ as well. Because last week, or week 6, it looked like Geek Fam were still experimenting. It looked like they were scrambling. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but it looked like they just didn't know what was going on, how they should take things, etc. Because the drafts were very, very weird. They had different priorities in the draft, and maybe it's because I did give them the benefit of the doubt last week as well during the mini recap, that maybe they just haven't really caught up to the meta, to the patch as well. This week, they have. Coach Bluffsy has proven me wrong, has basically learned and improved from the mistakes that they made last week, and Luke has been given playmaking heroes, thank God. Finally, Luke on actual playmaking heroes, and then towards the end, Masha as well. Doesn't really count as playmaking, more of a carry, but he was performing way better under Ruby on these playmaking heroes. Luke is probably the best XP laner in Indonesia. But for the most part, every single member on the team as well plays a role really, really well. Even Ray. Shoutouts to Ray. Because early on in the season, I remember saying that, you know, Ray is the worst jungler in MPL Indonesia. And he might actually not be the worst jungler in MPL Indonesia anymore. He might just be scratching towards average now, which is very, very good for Geek Fam. Because honestly, they have so many crazy mechanical players right now in Chidera, in Aboy, and even in Luke, that having a mediocre jungler that just gets, you know, the job done as a utility jungler is completely fine. So Geek Fam, really, really solid. And obviously, the mastermind behind it all, Beloyski, finally finding his groove again. And Geek Fam look to be a mid-table team that can contend again for great if they continue this performance. For Alter Ego and Dewa, I'll put them in the same category, but I will put Dewa over Alter Ego. Why? Here. At least for Dewa, they have a little bit more Okay. Let's talk about Dewa first. Dewa have a lot of creativity when it comes to their drafts. sometimes they do lack in those fundamentals with the creativity, with the creative picks that they go for, like the Minsatar in the gold lane, fully focused on basically shutting down Iman. That did not work out. And then, obviously picks for Drian. The thing is, when you pick random picks, or quote unquote random picks for Drian, he actually performs on those picks. So for Dewa United, it's kind of, they're in a weird spot where they're also a very, very solid team. They have very good core members that can make the team work, that can, win games and matches. Like we did see, they did actually take a win last week. But this team is still really, really weird in a way where they're very, very inconsistent, even more so than Rebellion. Dewa are the most... Rebellion is the weirdest team, but I think Dewa might be the most inconsistent team in MPL ID. So yeah, not much to say about Dewa. They have just solid players, but they just haven't been able to utilize these players in this meta because it's kind of a different meta. And Gary as well has been underperforming real hard. Like Gary might be the worst jungler in MPL ID right now. But let's move on to Alter Ego, the team that I put in the no playoffs category as the worst team this week. Last week they had Aldo drafting for them with Nafari, and with Aldo, they had a lot of creativity in the drafts. There were things that, it did look really, really weird, but still, it was creative, right? They were creative, but they kind of lack fundamentals. Now, without Aldo, Alter Ego have no creativity and no fundamentals. It's so sad to see because it's so weird. I've been giving Alter Ego the same freaking criticism since week 1. And honestly, I'm super tired of talking about Alter Ego because it's the same shit over and over again. Even when they were winning, I was giving them the same freaking criticism. They are so template. They are too template, dude. Once they get into the late seasons where a lot of these teams know how they play, how they only play for neutral objective, how they only play for team fights, how they only win through neutral objectives in the early game and snowballs and team fighting. And if they do not find an early snowball, even if the enemy team isn't leading, even if the enemy team is just holding, them back in the early to mid, they have no idea how to take games. Mid to late game, the Alter Ego are the weakest team in the world, possibly in mid to late game. They are one of the strongest still in early to mid, but when all the other teams know how to counter you, when all the other teams just weather a storm to mid game, that early game doesn't become as strong anymore because teams don't fall for the 100% commitment anymore in the early game. And even then, in the early game, we are seeing a lot of teams finally beat Alter Ego in the early game. So their strength isn't even super, super crazy anymore, So for Alter Ego, I will have to put them in no playoffs. And with that, let's move on to... First, the playoff scenario. Okay, boys, we're going to be talking about the playoff scenario, how teams can make it to the playoffs, how teams can make it to upper brackets, and let's move on to that first. All right, boys and girls, these are the standings for MPL ID Season 13 per Week 7, and we're going to be talking about the requirements that are necessary for these teams to actually make it to playoffs or upper brackets, okay? This is literally just how they make it to upper brackets or playoffs. You won't even talk about the uncertainties just yet. We'll have a clearer perspective in week number 9, a clearer way for every single team in week number 9. But for now, we will only be talking about their requirements. So for Bigatron Alpha and ONIC, both these teams have secured playoffs. How do they secure upper brackets? Bigatron Alpha, all they need is one more match win. Doesn't matter if it's 2-1, 2-0, one more match win, and they will secure upper brackets. ONIC, they need 2 more match victories. If they get 2 more match victories, they will automatically secure upper brackets as well. Next, we're going to move on to Aura, Evos, Rebellion, and Geek Fam. All the teams who are standing at 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. This is where it's very, very cool, all right? Like, number 1 and 2, very, very simple. They've already made it to playoffs. Now we're talking about how all these teams can make it to playoffs. If Aura, Evos, Rebellion, and Geek Fam, all 4 get 2 match victories, they will secure playoffs. If all of these teams get 2 wins, RQ, Alter Ego, Dewa, goodbye. That's why the exact scenario of every single team I cannot discuss just yet on like how RQ will have to win all their matches, which teams do they need to lose their matches, etc. We won't talk about that until week number 9. Week number 9 will have the full detailed like explanations for every single team's scenario to playoffs. But for Aura, Evos, Rebellion, Geek Fam, they need just 2 more match victories and they make it to playoffs. 8 wins is the standard right now to make it to playoffs. So if any of these teams can make it to 8, they win. For RRQ, then it'll make it 3 matches, because if they win all their matches and get 8, then they will make it to playoffs. For Alter Ego and Dewa, I will give you a different kind of criteria where, we've been talking about how all these teams need to win to make it to playoffs. Alter Ego and Dewa, for both these teams who are both standing at 4-9, 4-9, if they lose 2 more matches, they will automatically not qualify. They will automatically be out of playoff contention. 2 more matches is all they can afford. If they lose 2 more, it's done for Alter Ego and for Dewa. So hope that makes it clearer for you guys. This is the schedule for week number 8. We will have a lot of big matches, starting off with Geek Dewa. Again, both these teams need a victory. Big Chan Aura, Dewa Alter Ego, Evos RRQ, ONIC RBL, RRQ Geek, RBL BTR, and then Aura Evo. So stay tuned for tomorrow and check it out. But now let's move on to the player tier list, and then, yeah, that's it. All right, boys, here is the gold lane tier list that we have. And honestly, we're going to have to move Iman up there and CW up there. Honestly, CW definitely did have a more impressive week, so I will put CW over Iman here. And Skylar, I'll have to downgrade to the highest A tier. Though, again, he's really good. It's only the fact that, they lost both their matches in that week. Chidera, I will be moving up here, though, for sure. Chidera is such a complete gold laner. And for Moai as well, I'll actually move Moai up there. Nino and Watt will be in C tier for now, and Brands will also be in B tier, or sorry, in A tier, just right there. For now, this is how I feel the gold lane standings are. Honestly, because of his hero pool, I will actually put Kabuki right here, but his mechanics definitely deserve to be here, honestly speaking. But yeah, that's the gold lane tier list for me. Let me know in the comments if you guys agree. Let's move on to the Roam tier list next, which is right here. We had Yaoi over there. I think right now, Keyboy and Key definitely deserve to be up there. Yaoi will be dropped a bit down because his hero pool and his performance in the previous week wasn't as crazy as it used to be. A lot of teams have finally gotten the read. Brusco, I will have to downgrade. Rossi, Dream's definitely up here. Drianix as well might have to drop down. But yeah, I think this might be it right now. Rossi, I think, is better. For now, this is how I see the roam in MPL ID. Now, let's move on to mid lane, where Sans and Moreno are still definitely there. A boy is still definitely here. Clay, I'm going to have to drop him down to B tier. Yehezkiel, right there. Clockun definitely deserves to be up here. And Swalo over Yehezkiel for now. He's been more consistent. Yeah. And this is how it looks like right now, ladies and gentlemen, for mid lane. Let's move on over to jungle. For jungle, I honestly still feel even Annabelle. Annabelle. Even though he's player of the week, I honestly don't feel like he is at a level of these 3 junglers just yet. I still think these 3 junglers are the best in MPL ID. I will have to downgrade Irad though, because it's super unfortunate. And then downgrade Gary. Ray will take over Gary's position. Then we'll have Vincent over there and Annabelle. I think this is a very good list so far. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you guys agree or disagree. This is the last week. This is last week's. Well, Aran was up there last week. I think we're going to have to downgrade Aran back to B. Honestly, I'm going to have to put Cars and Luke back up here as well. Luke, when he gets his heroes, he's just really good. Lutpi, definitely a star player, like up there in A. Dixon, Fluffy's there as well. I'm going to have to put Don down with Dixon. Oran, honestly, might have to be put down in B because of his really bad performance last week. But I think Fluffy or Lutpi. Lutpi's more complete. So I think I will have to list the XP laners in this way. And again, if you guys agree, let me know in the comment section. If you disagree, then let me know in the comment section as well. Hey, we can have a fun little discussion. But with that, we are going to end this video. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Peace out.